This is the Franchise QB Podcast, where we empower entrepreneurs to win big in franchising. We huddle up weekly to educate our audience about the most successful small business model ever created, franchising.
Welcome to the Franchise QB Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Halpern, a 20-year industry veteran and entrepreneur. My mission is for listeners to achieve their American dreams of creating wealth and independence through franchise ownership. Every week, we speak with franchisees, franchisors, or vendors that support the industry. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Joining us in the huddle today is Chris Hallberg, founder of GoExpand and business Sargent. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you as a guest. So, Chris, you have an interesting background. You served our country in the Army National Guard for 9 years, so thank you for your service. Your military orders took you around the world to really interesting places like Germany, Guatemala, and Panama to conduct training. Then you went to work for the Department of Corrections and for a sheriff's office before shifting from public service to beginning a sales and marketing career. You also spent many years in home services. And as we kind of discussed in the green room, that's been the hottest segment of franchising, at least that I've experienced since the pandemic. And you became the first EOS implementer in the state of Colorado over a decade ago. Lots to unpack there. So let's start with your military experience. How did that experience shape your approach to leadership and business?
Well, I think that the leadership schools that I went to and the wonderful and apocalyptically bad examples of leadership that I saw in the military, like some amazing stuff and some, I never want to be viewed that way as a leader ever. Where in the military you have a rank structure and a corporal doesn't tell a major what to do, like in any world at all ever. In the civilian business world, it's a little different, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a chain of command, but it's not so explicit. Because I said so, because I outrank you, whenever you hear those two come out of someone's pie hole, it's, we're not in the wonderful leadership range. That's like, back when you're a kid, when you're sassing mom, you want a fresh one of these, all right, this is not a negotiation. So there's corporal punishment, speaking of corporals.
So you got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly back then.
Yeah. So not only was I a wooden spoon survivor, growing up in the 70s and 80s as a kid, back when I was in the military, there were these woodline attitude adjustments. So if you really got too far, someone would just grab you by the ear and then fix the attitude, because there's always someone bigger and stronger than you in the military, just like life. But seriously, I think the commitment is the big difference, right? When you enlist for 6 years, 9 years, you take a commission or you enlist, that's a pretty big commitment. And people in the civilian business world get another offer. They could do a touch and go. They could leave after. So the commitment is really the difference. And when we find business teams that are in it to win it, those teams have a chance to be an elite performing team. If you don't give a crap, right, you don't care, you can't hold someone accountable that isn't committed to being great, and accountability is a part of that journey. So that's the fast thing right there, is like the military is a melting pot, all the different races and creeds and socioeconomic backgrounds, and you're all equally worthless. You're all green to me, right? The drill sergeant would say. So that was really neat, just kind of experiencing other cultures in all being kind of under the same environment. So it was great to take you from wherever you came from and show you that there's a bigger world. And you can't really judge a book by the cover so much, because I met some people that looked fairly unassuming, but they were bad to the bone. They were really, really skilled operators and great at their jobs. And other people might look the part and you're like, oh, bless your heart, go over here so no one gets hurt. And I just think they fired up leadership that pick up your whatever and follow me, leading from the front, right? You see the meme where you got the boss with the whip at the top of the team, right? They're all on a sled or something. And then you've got the leader who's leading in the first position, pulling the weight, with the team behind. So learning to pull people, not push people, is a big part of military service. So there are some of those skills that are super transferable for great business leaders. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that in a little bit with one of your businesses, Business Sargent. We'll talk about how, military, just education and training and just living that experience translates into the corporate world. But in your view, what separates organizations that execute well from those that struggle to turn plans into results, right? Everyone has a plan, but if you can't take that and apply it and make it work, then it's meaningless.
Yeah, I'll just take your comment and riff on that. The plan. So a plan that has never been shared is not a plan. A plan that you don't allow people to push back on, not a real plan. A plan that everyone doesn't fully understand and opt 100% into or 100% out of also will not work. So having a plan and then also being serious. Why would you tell somebody this is what we intend to do if you don't really intend to do it? So I find that lack of commitment, or wouldn't it be nice to do this? Like, okay, once we're in the wouldn't be nice, like that, I'm not investing in that. That's not happening. Mm-hmm. Like when you get a group of people that are crazy in the head about this particular result, okay, these guys got a shot. It's still going to be hard, but they got a shot. Anything less, it's going to be some pretty milquetoasty, barely break even, maybe make a small profit. But for companies that are, kicking a hole in the sky or denting the universe, these are people that are curated teams. So like role players, the best sports team isn't the dream team, right? The U.S. dream team got beat by whatever team, and it was embarrassing with a payroll that was $1 gazillion, but they were all stars that you know what I mean, that took shots. They didn't pass the ball. And you look at the 1980 hockey team, the Olympic U.S. hockey team, no real superstars, all role players, and they beat the Russians who had all the NHLers and the top world league people. So that business is about having a vision that is not only executable, but is full, like 90% full of people that are willing to go through difficult times to get there because that end result is meaningful. So I just excluded 95% of all businesses with that last comment. So if you take that level of commitment and you use some proven military strategies. So I wrote a book back in, I think, what was it, 2017, the book came out. It's called The Business Sergeant's Field Manual, Military Grade Business Execution Without the Yelling and Push-Ups. Just saying, hey, let's use some of these proven systems. Like, no doubt the U.S. military is the finest that's ever existed. We just got a dictator out of his PJs in the middle of the night without any, U.S. deaths. And that type of mission could only really be pulled off by the U.S. But, hundreds of aircraft, surveillance, heartbeat sensors, at least the tax dollars are, we know we're getting an ROI in defense. Maybe not so much in other places, but the point is to have a team that could pull that off. It is just the epitome of great teamwork and leadership and accountability and service to others and service to others before yourself. And if we just do a little bit of that, I mean, I meet companies like they're minutes late, 5-10 minutes late to my meeting where I'm assessing, I'm coming to look to see how professional they are. And the CEO comes in 2 or 3 minutes late and I'll start the meeting like, how often does this happen? Is this acceptable? And I'll look at the CEO. I said, all right, well, this is on you. You're the senior person here and you were late. It's obviously kind of hard to hold people accountable. And people are thinking, oh gosh, this guy's here to sell us. And you know what I mean? So my whole point is I go after the root issue, not the friendly issue, not the cordial issue. And in the military, when people's lives are on the lines, you're not going to paper over things for the most part. You're going to go because lives are on the lines. In the business world, unless you're in the life and death kind of business, that's not the case. But if we could just take things a little bit more seriously and take some pride in our service and being a good teammate and not wanting to let each other down, now we can go do some really good things because we have a curated team that want to do it. So most companies don't really share their vision. People don't know what they do, how it rolls up to it. And because of that, they're missing out on the purpose, the why, the passion, the really big stuff that makes good companies great. So that's a really long answer right there, but it's commitment and discipline and execution and curating a team, and not everyone belongs on your team. Don't be overly inclusive. Elite military units, elite sports teams are exclusive. It's not easy to get on your team. It should be easy to get off the team, but most companies are really easy to get on the team and really hard to get off the team. So that's going to be my final answer right there is the difference is slow to hire, quick to fire versus quick to hire and slow to fire.
It makes sense. And I like the analogy you gave of the miracle on ice, a bunch of no-names coming together and shocking the world with their, victory over the Russians because they all played their roles and they collaborated and they worked together as a team, as opposed to a bunch of superstars on the dream team where they're the main guy in every environment they encounter. And now they're all together and it's like, what do we do? Who's the leader? How do we manage this? And that same applies in a company. Like if you put the right people in the right seats, you have a shared vision, you just are obsessed about that, vision or that goal, good things tend to happen. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think that'll resonate with a lot of people that are listening to us and exploring business ownership and franchising. So Chris, what leadership challenges tend to emerge as a company grows, right? So if it starts out small, there may be one guy or there might be a small team, but there's a lot of challenges that present as the company gets to that next phase.
Yeah. Finding enough people that have enough F's to give, as the kids say today, low F's. So no one cares like the owner. That's why franchises are so darn successful as a percentage, because when you take that life savings, crack that 401k, and you buy the franchise fee and you got your monthly maintenance and all that, like,
you have a lot on the line.
You got a lot on the line. You don't just say, well, I'm not really sure, just a dartboard with three different, totally different franchises. So when someone finds like their perfect franchise, and I'm an EOS implementer, an expert EOS implementer, so I'm a franchise owner, right? It didn't start out. It started as a business opportunity. Then we were kind of made to be a franchise because of, the rules, the control, and it just made sense as the business grew. Now we have like 950 franchisees, and I was in like, the first 50 EOS implementers back in 2014, which
that's kind of cool that you saw them transition from like a licensor model to a franchise model, because the business was behaving like a franchise. So the FTC steps in and say, hey, now you have to behave like a franchise.
That's exactly what happened in our case. And, there was some good sides to that, and maybe because it happened quickly, maybe there's some other things, but like at the end of the day, I think it's a great vehicle to grow. And if you've never been in business before, I would say like the systems are important if they're good systems. If they're bad systems, now you're just paying a bunch of money for systems that are not good. So like the thing about franchisors is they're not all created equal. That's where folks like you come in and look at track record for the last 18 months and how many people have followed the pro forma, and how many people got great marketing, right? And smoke and mirrors. There are, I'm guessing, I don't know, you'll have to correct me, but
no, you're right. I mean, like in the FTD, you have, there's like you said, I mean, there's good ones, there's bad ones, there's mature ones, there's emerging, there's mid-market. Like you have to do your homework. You have to vet the franchise owners and find out the culture. You have to really vet the leadership team. You have to look at item 20 in the FTD and see if they're expanding or contracting. And there's a lot of stones to turn over before you make an investment in franchising. Because you're right, like systems are great if they're repeatable and predictable and good. And if they're not, you're just throwing your money down.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people, I have experience with clients and friends and family that have bought poor franchises, and it was like, that was the worst thing. You would have actually been better on your own because this is so bad. And then other ones, you're like, you wouldn't figure this out in 10 years. So for what you're paying for this, especially if you're buying into a brand that has strong recognition, like I don't think people understand the millions of dollars and the Super Bowl commercials and some of these brands. To have 20 years of brand awareness is probably even worth more than what they're charging you for the fee versus, hey, here's a concept with really bad tools, and please help us see if we can make this be successful. And it's a much harder. That's why I don't think people should just willy-nilly, buy a franchise. They should work with an expert that knows the inside secrets. No, you don't want that one. You want this one, because the insiders are saying they're responsive. They market in the year they live in. Their brand is strong. Their process is dialed. Like they already have all these locations that are doing well. Like that really de-risks you when you have that kind of information. So EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, right, is a simple set of holistic tools to help align and synchronize the moving parts of the business. Many franchisors have a little bit of EOS or some mini EOS, and that's a concept that most civilians just don't get without someone hiring an EOS implementer or buying a franchise that has vision, right, traction, and maybe a little bit of healthy, the three uniques.
Yeah, Chris, that's how I found out about it myself. I went to a franchise event in Omaha, Nebraska with a company called Horsepower Brands, which is a kind of portfolio franchisor that has a lot of home services brands. And I expected them to sell me on how great their brands were so I can in turn tell my clients. But we spent most of the time talking about EOS, and I thought that was just really interesting.
Yeah, it is an amazing process. The book is Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business, written by my good friend Gino Wickman. Highly recommend that to anyone considering a franchise or a business, because it really gets to understand the system. Like, everyone has an accounting system, an HR system, a marketing system perhaps, but an actual operating system like your smartphone, bad name. I don't think these are making America smarter or the world smarter, but you're an Apple or an iOS or a Google or whatever the other OSs are. Most of them are Android or iOS. The operating system is what gets the camera and the Snapchat filter to give you dog ears, so
the things that are really important in life.
Yeah. The things are really important. I should come up with a better example, but that's an easy one there. But the operating system sits over the top of everything. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we do? How much are we going to do? By when? With who? You know what I mean? 3-year goals, 1-year goals, quarterly rocks, long-term issues. So once you kind of know who you are, why you exist, what you do, and answer those questions, then everyone opts in 100% in its entirety. Feel free to press on this if you don't think it's fully baked. Ask questions. But like, when you don't give someone a shared vision that they opt in or opt out to, then it's whatever percentage of the vision they think it is, how they've received it, and whatever else they think fills in the rest of those blanks. And when you add up 10 people with even a slightly, 10 degrees off, that's 100 degrees off target. When you multiply all the 10 degrees, right, 10 times, you're no longer engaging, you're not even going north, you're going east or a little east southeast now under that example. So it's simple. It makes sense. It works unbelievably well, because I have had clients under $1 million, do it. And I've had clients over $1 billion a year. And most of my clients are somewhere between, I would say, probably 10 and 150 million, but bigger or smaller, it works everywhere. I've brought it to my clients because of the simplicity. That's another thing with the military. Acronyms for everything. There's a bunch of abbreviations and acronyms in EOS. EOS is a system. The military is a one big old system. And the reason why we're able to snatch, dictators in their jammies in the middle of the night, because everyone's following a checklist. Everyone is starting with him getting picked up and working backwards. And EOS, or franchise operating systems, business operating systems, all have a bit of that in there. And that's why military folks, are very successful in the franchise world, because they already understand systems thinking and commitment and clarity and after action reviews. And, being a humble servant leader will get you to be quite successful. Being a selfish, I got to have the last say on everything is fine, while you started out, right? Yeah. But as you start to delegate and add more people, no one cares like the owner. But you can find people that are passionate about an outcome. And if you can define that and they align with it, then now we can have other people with ownership thinking. And when you have a small group, having 1 or 2 people that behave like renters, not owners, is all it takes for your dreams not to come true. So my advice to your listeners, is don't just hire everyone with your logo on their shirt, with your email address, is a reflection upon you, the brand, and everything. So most teams would rather work a man down than with the wrong person, because then they're having to redo someone's work, which takes away from their impact. So
yeah.
In rowing, if someone gets hurt, right, and they can't row, they jump out of the boat, because at least the boat with an empty oar is 200 pounds lighter. And I think that's kind of more military thinking. What's practical to execute the mission?
I can imagine that in your line of work, especially with EOS implementation, your clients have to get really uncomfortable, and they have to look themselves in the mirror and say, what are we trying to accomplish? Why did we create this company? And sometimes they have to really rethink their answers before they can then say, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. And I know that's hard, because anytime you're stepping out of your comfort zone and you're doing something that's different, but then when you get through all that uncomfortable stuff, it's like, all right, now there's this clarity and we can all work towards the same goal, and we can get people out of here that don't align with our corporate culture. So kind of going to that culture, I wanted to ask you, how do leaders build greater accountability while maintaining that strong company culture?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to finding people that are committed to being a great leader. Oftentimes, the senior person gets the management title, and not all humans enjoy leading other humans. Let's just be clear. So that is kind of a fundamental thing. There should be an opportunity for you to have subject matter experts, a junior, a regular, a senior. The world works in threes: apprentice, journeyman, master. Like I could go on all day. So having the ability to keep talented people without making them the manager is a hot piece of advice that I give my clients, and that's what elongates people's service. And being a subject matter expert means you can manage work product or results or outcomes, but you're not into the hiring, firing, rewarding, and recognizing, the typical things that leaders, managers do. So I think it's very important to not put people that are not good or don't enjoy leading other people in charge of leading people. And it happens all the time. Here's a quick example: taking your top performing salesperson and making them the sales leader, the sales manager, the sales director, the sales VP. It happens a lot. And the same skills to make you number one on a 10-person sales team are not the skills to manage the herd. The sales manager is usually, 50 to 70th percentile of the top performer, but everyone in operations loves them. Their paperwork is clean. It's complete. The customers love them. They're great communicators. They don't avoid conflict or high conflict discussions, whereas high performers are just talented. They're bold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're ringing the bell, but they're going to take some shortcuts, and they're going to want to feel special. And what's the deal for me? I got the best deal, right? You know what I mean? Those are the people that usually lead sales leaderboards, and it's one of the most common mistakes in business, other than hanging on to the wrong people for too long.
Cool. So you've built and exited businesses over your career. What are some of the key lessons? I'm sure you have a lot, but what are some of the key lessons you've taken away from building a business and then stepping away and exiting from that business?
Yeah, I'll just go from that last parting shot about hanging on to the wrong people. Like, trust me, the first 90 days of someone's employment, it's the best you're going to see. It's the highest effort. I'm the new person. I have to prove myself that I fit here. So if someone's in the first 90 days and you're not in a pinch myself moment, I'd highly recommend that you try again until that fits that description. That one piece of advice right there will probably be the difference between success and failure, because if someone doesn't have the skill or the fire or like the soft skills or all the intangibles, you will pay them full freight and you will get a percentage of that back. And business 101, you can't give someone, $5,000 a month and have them give you $2,000 worth of results. Like, you can do that for as many months as you can afford, the delta, and then you're broke. A great person is the pinch. I can't believe they work here. I got to keep that person happy. I really want to let them know I appreciate them, because slowing down the turnover, and you got to pay people. You can't get top talent with bottom labor. Like, it's impossible. I see people try that one as well. So point being, I'd rather have 5 amazing people than 8 or 9 mediocre people. It actually costs about the same amount of money, but it's about a quarter of the brain damage for everyone. And once you start to scale, you can't scale complexity or brain damage. You can scale simplicity and good vibes. Those two scale well.
Yeah, very cool. So Chris, how can these business operating systems help leadership teams improve execution and scale more effectively? And then we'll kind of move on from EOS and talk about some of your other businesses.
Yeah. So I think business operating system like EOS or the franchise operating system that people are buying into, they're buying a system, and turns out the system works. It's been proven.
Right.
EOS, right? 100,000 companies run on EOS, and there's not too many things on the internet that aren't 50% love it and 50% hate it. EOS is actually one of those things. You'll find some haters. Oh, it's a cult. Oh, it's expensive. Oh, it's this, or it's too whatever. But it's surface level criticism. There's not like a real meat on any one of those bones. Most people, 90%, it's like, I can't believe this works so well. And the brilliance of Gino wasn't in creating everything in EOS, because there's all kinds of stuff in there from Jim Collins and, Patrick Lencioni and Dan Sullivan, and like, it goes back Floyd Wickman, his dad, Zig Ziglar. Like, there's got to be, a bunch of different people's stuff in there. But what he did is he simplified all of those messages and then got them to work together in a holistic fashion. That is the minimum necessary to get it done and tie it together. So connecting, plugging in the big extension cords, the leadership team, the management team, the team, your vision, right? Your people, your data, your issues, your process, and your traction. And to get that all to work together, that's the power of what people are buying a franchise for. You're not the first person to ever run. Give me a name of like your top franchise that you sell. What is like something that's hot right now?
Oh, there's so many. Floor Coverings International, Rolling Suds. I mean, a lot of
so let's say
service
Floor
models,
Coverings International. Like how many square feet of floor coverings has that group between where they started and all their franchise? Like millions?
A lot, right? They have hundreds of owners. Some are doing 10 million in sales. Some aren't,
so let's just agree they've bought, sold, and installed successfully millions of square feet. So do you think they've figured a few things out? Somewhere between 100,000 square feet and 1 million or 5 million square feet. That's exactly what you're buying into. So why would you invest in a franchise and not follow the system? So
Sure.
That goes back to commitment. You have to not be a know-it-all. You need to be a Swiss Army knife, but you also shouldn't be reimagining the wheel. You should find the fastest set of tires that you can afford and drive the treads off those things and get some new rubber, when this one's used up. That's the whole point of systems, is they're proven. So is it a proven system like EOS, or is it an unproven system like EO Jeff, some guy who just copied EOS and changed a few words and poof, now it's his.
I like that, EO Jeff. I'm going to remember that one. So let's switch gears a little bit to one of your other businesses. You've been doing the EOS consulting for many years, and obviously you're an expert at it. You're adept at helping your clients implement it. You created a business called Business Sargent. What have you learned from helping veterans transition into civilian leadership roles? And tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so the model is it's a multifaceted business. It's veteran owned. My partner is a recently retired, last couple of years, Green Beret warrant officer. So he was a Green Beret medic, then became a intelligence sergeant, and then became a targeting officer and a schoolhouse teacher. So Silver Star, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, like Michael, my partner, is a real deal Green Beret who's highly respected, and probably $5 or $6 million in education over 22 years in special operations, countless deployments. Just the stories you'll get, like, you're having a bad day, story time. Like, you're not having a bad day, you're having a quite good day with a bad attitude when you hear his bad day stories. Point being, we're not just a recruiter who places veterans. A lot of them elite special ops vets or top 20 regular vets. It's like this. Civilians send your industry-specific people to leadership training for a weekend, and they forget half of it by Wednesday. It's just not how it works. So our whole value prop is we already got the best leaders on the planet, and they won a job at your company. Yeah. Why don't you hire them in a middle to senior management capacity, even if they don't have industry experience? Because the truth is, they can do what you do. What you do for money is so much easier what they used to do for lives, was the currency, right?
Right, but their behaviors are so well disciplined, and the way they think and the way they behave, you can teach them your widget, right?
Yeah, so that's the thing. And my job in the organization is to talk to CEOs and just basically say, listen, this is a leadership issue. You don't solve it by taking your people and sending them to leadership school. I mean, you kind of can. I'm not saying that's not going to help, but it pales in comparison to taking someone that has spent 22 years and not just learning things, but applying them in the gravest, most serious situations in the most austere environments. So like, once you say like, hey, we got to hit our Q3 numbers, or we got to figure out this warehouse, everyone else is like, man, this is hard. And this person is like, oh God, that's it? That's all I got to do? So I think like people that understand communication, that understand being on time, you won't find people are more committed or great team players unless you're splitting atoms, nuclear fission, like robotic neurosurgery. There are definitely some things that a veteran just can't figure out in 90 to 180 days. But in my experience, probably 95% of all businesses, leadership positions, they can pick up the industry jargon. Like, everyone thinks, oh, I've got 20 years in this business. Well, I appreciate that, but this business is nothing like it was 20 years ago. So you actually have like 4 different lived experiences. The one we're in right now is the one that I'm talking to you about. So while I appreciate that, and I don't want to degrade someone, I forgot more about this than you'll ever know, that's not as useful. Look at something like marketing, for instance. Marketing changes every year. Every release of AI has completely changed a bunch of different industries. So you have to market in the year you live in. You have to lead. Back to leadership, let's just put this out there. The kids coming out of high school and college are about 50% less accountable than they were even 10 or 15 years ago. And then, 10 or 15 years ago to 50 years ago, give me a break. You know what I mean? Just look at the videos of people on the beach in the 1970s and look at them today. Like, society's not the same thing. So if leadership is in decline and accountability is in decline, for a business owner to say, gee, if all my company is a handful of people and my people aren't very accountable and they, you know what I mean? They don't communicate well and they don't hold each other accountable, that might end well. So if you want to stack the deck and hire people that already have been proven 1,000 times over 1,000 times, the likelihood of them coming to your company and following your systems and being good humans and being accountable and being committed, it goes up like thousands in percent.
Yeah, sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, what a great service connecting these really highly skilled military veterans with good businesses that could be great with the right people in the right seats. So that's awesome. Thanks for kind of explaining that to us, Chris. And I wanted to also touch on another company you own called GoExpand. Tell us a little bit about GoExpand and who's a good fit to use the service.
Yeah, so GoExpand is an application that's licensed by EOS worldwide, and it does all the EOS tools, and it also does 6 or 7 different people apps plus an agentic AI agent. So it listens to your meeting. When you take a to-do, it automatically assigns you a to-do. You can look at your scorecards, your accountability chart, your rocks, your big projects, your priorities, all the different parts of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, plus a bunch of different human performance tools that my top clients would all use in addition to those EOS tool sets. And then the AI agentic agent is like a playbook builder. You just put your one-pagers in there. And so instead of saying, knock, knock, hey, I got a dumb question, I know I should know, but I forgot, they can just ask the brain, and the brain will give them a one-pager. And if they just follow that, management's going to be pretty happy because that's exactly what we wanted. And when we stop interrupting or disturbing our teammates and we start using the knowledge that they've put in there, it gives you like another day of the week. So the EOS coaching, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, if you have a system and now you have a piece of software to run it, and then you have the right people in the right seats, you got it. So I'm in like those 2 other businesses that support my EOS business aren't on accident. They are the other ingredients to having a great operating system implementation and the right people in the right seats to execute it. So they're very focused on doing what I do at a very high level with high efficacy. My clients, and I've taken about 130-ish people through the EOS process in almost 13 years. It's a 2-year implementation, and they have won well over 200 Best Places to Work awards. And these are not just write a check for a crystal. These are full employee email engagement surveys. And if they don't like the coffee filters, they're going to light you on fire to the Business Journal. So just understand that once, 94% of your company loves it at your company, you're probably making lots of money and spending time nights and weekends with your family because the team's got it. If you've got the bad news bears and they're barely hanging on by a thread, you can kiss your personal life goodbye for the first couple of years of business ownership, because that's what you're going to be dealing with is stupid human tricks. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
not even like not being on time or not showing up with the right uniform or not having the right equipment or not using the software application that you pay all this money for. Like,
it's like you're starting from scratch every day, every week, every month. Yeah, it's interesting. I logged on to your GoExpand and I jumped in the Sandbox platform just to check out the software, and it was really cool. I just kind of fiddled around with it a little bit the other day, so I can see how that dashboard is really helpful to figure out like, what do I have to work on? What am I doing really well at? And it's just like a one-stop shop for all the data, which is really great. So Chris, this has been awesome. Anything else you want to add to the mix before we wrap up today?
I would just say like the most important thing here, if you're going to put your life savings on the line is to be super intentional, and you really got to see yourself doing that work yourself for a while. And then you have to make sure that you have accessible labor for what you've chosen to do. So like, this is the important thing, is unless your franchise is just owner operator, access to talent, having a brand and a purpose that makes sense will serve you well, because there are some jobs that it's just really hard to hire people for, and you want to make sure that whatever you choose, that you're going to be able to staff it. The labor market has changed wildly since Corona, and I think people should really look at the labor situation. And if you have access to good people within the range that's in the pro forma, you're probably going to be really successful. If that's not true, you could try as hard as you want to and pick the best thing. But if you can't staff it and you can't manage it, like it ain't going to buff. So that would be my advice, is to work with an expert like Michael here, who knows what those things are, and don't think you can figure this out on your own. As I understand it, the franchisee doesn't pay for you, the franchisor does when at the end of the deal.
That's exactly right. Yeah, my services are free to the franchise buyer. And it's been great advice. And, I really appreciate your time today, Chris. And if anyone listening would like to learn more about Business Sargent or GoExpand, contact me at franchiseqb.com. I'll get you guys connected. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time to get in the huddle with us today.
Great to be here, Mike. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to the Franchise QB podcast, where you're at the helm of your future as a franchise owner. If you enjoyed the content, please rate the show and recommend it to anyone that might be interested in franchising. Make sure to visit franchiseqb.com to subscribe to my newsletter and for an actionable playbook to go from walk-on to legend in your new business. Follow us on Twitter at QBFranchiseQB and join us every week for a new episode. See you next time.
Visit franchiseqb.com to take the next step of your journey towards wealth, independence, and franchise ownership. And remember, when working for the man gets old, you must do something bold. Thank you for listening.